Hello everybody and welcome back to the next video in our How to Make an Avatar series. So I know last video I had covered materials and I left off the video with saying that I was going to go through and update my materials on my model because I'm pretty picky about how I like my materials, so it was going to take me some time to do that. So I have gone through and done that, but nothing that I did for her was not recorded in the last video, but I am going to do just a quick little recap at the start of this video before we jump into like the next part of learning, just in case there is something that I left off. I did go back and watch the old or like the previous tutorial before this one, and I don't think I left off anything that I've done on my model, but I'm just going to do a very quick run through of what I did just in case. And since she does look quite different, that way you guys can see kind of what I was talking about in the last video, since I didn't fully set everything up but more explained it and did very quick previews, I guess, of what things can do. So that is how I left off last video. So just a little warning, my model does look different now that I have gone through and set up my materials, but we'll recap that. This video is going to be actually for Physbones and Colliders. I know last tutorial I said that we were going to be moving on to toggles, but after I did some thinking about it, I think that it would be better, in my opinion, for the flow of the tutorial series to go ahead and do Physbones first. That way you can get your Physbones on there and then test for any clipping or weight painting issues whenever you go to test your toggles in Unity, especially for like female avatars with like the chest area or the hip area. If you have like multiple bottoms or multiple shirts, then it'll be helpful to go ahead and switch through our toggles after we have our Physbones added. That way, as we're changing through our toggles, we can test it with the Physbones to make sure that nothing else is clipping when those Physbones are moving. So we're going to go ahead and cover that today, and then the next tutorial video we'll jump into the toggles. So this video might be a little bit shorter, might be a little longer, but I think it's probably going to be shorter than some of the other ones. And the next tutorial is probably going to be quite a bit longer since we're going to do two different types of toggle creations. So just a little heads up in case these videos seem shorter or longer. Today we're also going to cover like I said, colliders for your Physbones, and we're also going to cover cloth physics. Now, my model doesn't use cloth physics. There's nothing on her that needs them, or that would really look good with it. But I do want to at least talk about it and kind of show you guys that it is an option. It's not widely used in a lot of avatars today because, just a forewarning, cloth physics can be quite a bit more laggy on your avatar. It can definitely up the avatar stats in terms of performing and make it a bit of a heftier avatar. So if you already have a really heavy avatar with like a lot of clothing options or hairs or systems or whatever you're doing, I would suggest looking into optimization before you potentially add cloth physics, or maybe just rigging whatever it is that you want to add so you can use Physbones instead. But if you have a fairly simple model and you want to throw in cloth physics, it is a really good option, especially for like skirts and dresses and things. But I did just want to kind of give out a warning that it's a great option for things that need to be a little bit more flowy, but it does add to the avatar's performance a little bit. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into Unity and get started. So before I actually start on the recap of what I've done for my materials, I did just want to point this out as kind of a note for future me whenever I go through and edit this. This is a Unity bug, a Poyomi shader bug, I don't know, but it only happens whenever I turn on oh, it's not happening now. Okay, we're gonna figure this out together. Is it my outlines? It's not my outlines. Oh, it's because I have hue shift on here, I think. Sorry, my computer's running really slow. We're gonna have to figure this out. I want to record what my issue is so that I can... Okay, so see, my decal is on, my hue shift is off, and then if I turn off hue shift here and decal on, it's fine. And then if I come up here and turn on color adjust, which has my hue shift, it's messed up. If I turn off hue shift, it's fine. So something with the hue shift, and it's just happening on the shoes, is causing these like black specks. And like we said, it's not the outlines. The outlines aren't doing it. I've run into this issue before quite some time ago, and I don't remember how I fixed it. And I have lost the screenshot that I saved on how I fixed it. So I am going to be reaching out to some other creators later today after I record this video. I meant to do it last night, but some stuff came up IRL, so I didn't get to do it. So I'm going to ask them how to fix this in case you guys ever run into this issue. Unfortunately, the fix won't be recorded, but editor Chin, me, will probably go through in the description. And because I don't think YouTube lets you pin comments. So I'll put it in the description on how we fixed this or what you can do to fix it. But if you're ever running into this, check your hue shifts. One of my friends suggested checking your outlines. So of course, if it's the outlines, then like the fix for it might be different. But for me, it's always the hue shift, and I'm not really too sure why, because hue shift works. Like it's not a problem. But it's only on the white, and I think it has something to do with maybe, and of course I have clipping, but I think it's something maybe to do with like the white can't hue shift, but I've never had an issue with that before. So I just wanted to toss that out there so that you guys could see like a real-time Unity Poyomi shader, whatever one it is, kind of a bug and glitch. And I will update the video description with how I fixed it and what tests you can do to fix it once I'm able to reach out to some other creators. But here is my model now that I have gone through and done my materials how I want them to be, and I've picked out her default outfit. It's a little bit different than what I was initially planning it to be. Like I said, I didn't really do anything different that I didn't show to you guys off camera, but I'm just gonna kind of do like a quick little like recap. I'll use like the bikini and the wings and stuff. So I went through, obviously I put actually I don't need it for that. Where is it? My decals. So I did go through and I put on my decals so that it can change to red or pink, and each one of them has a hue shift, so whenever it is active they can both hue. So nothing different there. Just remember to right click it and hit renamed when locked. And I think I covered this last video, but just in case I didn't, you'll want to come up here to where it says Thry up in the top corner, and you're going to go to shader UI settings, give it a second, and you're going to want to make sure right here to allow custom renaming for locking. Make sure that's check marked and you'll be good. The reason why we do that is it's going to let us have like multiple, so like if I wanted to, I could say like red hue shift and then a different toggle for pink hue shift, so I can have two different hue shifts controlled on the same mesh. If you don't do that and you don't have this RA toggled on with your sliders that you're going to want locked whenever, or animated whenever it's locked, then it will control both of them even if you try to make them a separate toggle. So super important. I think I covered that last time, but just in case I didn't, that's what's up. Got our normal map on there. Went through and of course added our matte cap with my settings there. I think I covered this last time as well, but I normally like to add a multiply rim lighting. It's very, very subtle, but like if you kind of look like down here, you can see it kind of adds more of like a shadow to it. And I'm going to link in the last tutorial as well as this one, since I'm talking about materials again, a link to another creator. His name is Crabman, and he has a tutorial up on his channel of how to set up like the extra maps that a lot of assets come with, like roughness, metallic, height, like all these different maps. And you might not know for sure what they do, but they do kind of help give it a more realistic, I guess, like look, and you can do a lot more like realistic lighting with it. So I'm going to link his channel because he covers that really, really well, and it's something he's a lot more familiar with than I am. So I tend to stick to just the basics of like matte caps and rim lightings and stuff. But if you want to know a little bit more about lighting, I would suggest his channel for that. Of course, I got my outlines on everything and emissions, and I actually went through, I don't think I covered this last time, when I put on a blinking emission, which you guys can see here. It's like points, like it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not fluid. I can scroll and kind of sort of make it fluid. It's basically like Unity is trying to give you a preview of what that emission looks like as you move around, but it's not actually going to play through because we're not in play mode. But I did put a blinking emission on it. and I have a hue shift on the emission as well, so that can be changed. Nothing really special there, it's just the normal emission map, and I just threw on a blink speed that I like. Of course, on my body, as you can see, I changed up the rim lighting a little bit because I wanted her to have more of like a rendered kind of shaded look, and threw on some glitter there and on the face. I think that's pretty much it. I just basic emissions like I did on the hair, I just added on the emission map that came with the hair cards, this gradient. Yeah, pretty much everything is like a blinking animation because it's very cyber focused, and matte caps, outlines, rim lighting, and glitter. The same things that I covered last video, just did want to kind of show you guys just a quick little recap since she does look pretty different than she did before. All I did was just go through and figured out what settings I liked, what colors I wanted for like my rim lighting and things like that, and my emissions, and added my outlines to everything. And yeah, so nothing different, just went through and actually set it all up properly. So with that being said, we can go ahead and jump into our Physbones. So Physbones are a lot like materials. It's really just going to kind of depend on how you want things to look. Like some people prefer really, really slow, flowy hair. Some people prefer it more realistic. It's totally up to you on what you do. These settings are just going to be what I find best. And you can always like play with something, and then once you like it, go through and save it somewhere so you don't have to worry about it again. But we are going to, so we have the booty, the chest, the hair, the wings, and the tail that we all need to do. And then we're going to add a collider for the head and chest so that the hair doesn't like clip through it. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So go to your armature, and you can, if you're like doing multiple things at once, like you can highlight them. So I'm just holding shift and clicking so that it's applying to both of the booty bones, the butt bones at once, so I don't have to do it twice. You can hit add component and type it in if you need to. Physbone, it's PHYS, and it'll pop up. And if you ever notice that you're on one and not the other, once you get it set up how you want, you can just hit these three dots, do copy component, and come over. And let's say this wasn't here, so I have it here. Let's say that we have all of our settings in. You can just hit the three dots up here, go to paste, component as new, and it'll paste it back in for you. That way you don't have to like try to remember the numbers or like reset it up each time. So you can copy and paste, or you can highlight them and edit them at the same time. So with Physbones, it's kind of difficult to explain without being difficult. It's one of those, like, I personally can't really tell you in really fancy words what all these things do. I just know that they work, and I know how I prefer them. I'm gonna do my best. I apologize that it's probably not going to be very like accurate or sound very nice. My English is about to get very, very broken. I apologize. So first things first, I wouldn't really suggest messing with anything up here. The only time that I would suggest messing with something is if you have, so let's turn this on. If you don't see anything, make sure that you have this little gizmo thing, is I think what it's called, this little like ball up here in the corner, toggled on, and that's going to let you see things. But like right now for our butt, we don't see any lines. Even if we click it, it's not, like nothing's happening, there's no lines. So we could add our Physbones to it, like we could go through and do all these different settings or whatever, and there's still nothing there. So the only time that you would want to mess with this first top part under transforms is in situations like this. And basically what this is that the butt bones are only one. So it goes hip, butt, and that's it. Physbones can't, quote unquote, be applied to things that only have one bone like this. Like it needs multiple. But it technically can. You just kind of have to tell Unity to do it. So in situations like this, you're going to want to add an endpoint, which is right here, this endpoint position. And you can set it to whichever direction you need to. So like obviously X is in it. Y seems to be the direction that we want, and then Z. So like depending on what you're adding, you'll just have to figure out which axis you need to type it into. But you could just add in something small. We put it in the Y-axis because if you look up here, that is the direction that we want that endpoint to go along. You would think it's Z, but it's funky. So just like I said, just kind of figure out which direction you need to. But you want to see these white lines for your Physbones. If you ever don't see these, like I've said, you'll want to make sure that you add an endpoint. Very, very important. Very common question I get quite a lot. So, because if you add your Physbones and you don't see a white line, you can go into play mode and those Physbones aren't going to show up. They're not going to work. There will be no movement, no jiggles, no nothing. So all you need to do is just add your endpoint or your endpoint. So pull is kind of like the actual movement like of my mouse. Like this is the center origin. So how much does the mesh pull away, I guess is the best way you could think of it, from that center point. And kind of like the speed. Oh, I wish I had like markers in Unity so I could show you guys, but it's kind of like, think of it as like a wave. You know, does the mesh do like a wave, or does it just go like straight, like very strict up and down? The best way I can think of it. It's so hard without like my drawing tools that I'm used to in Blender. Spring is, you know, like a slinky or any other kind of like actual spring in real life. Like, it's how quickly is the mesh that's weight painted to these bones going to come back to its resting position. So right now it's at its resting position, but whenever it's way up here, it's not. So how quickly is it going to snap back down? Is it going to do this number, or is it going to do something like slower, right? Gravity, that's self-explanatory. Immobile, I don't really mess with that too much. Y'all are welcome to mess with it. I never really felt like it does much other than make your stuff stiffer, which isn't always necessary because that can be controlled with the pull and spring. Limit type is something that I do add quite a lot, and I highly recommend adding it on your Physbones for things like the butt and the chest. I normally stick it to angle. You can play around with the other ones if you want. But this one's pretty self-explanatory too. It shows up this cone, and basically this white line that is your Physbone is only allowed to move within this cone. So this is super great for like shirts, and for like the boob Physbones, because if you don't, then whenever your avatar's like moving forward, the boobs can like fold back into the body, which is something that you don't really see anymore, so you might not know what I'm talking about. But back in the day, before Physbones were a thing, it was pretty common issue because we didn't have anything to like limit it, and we'd have to put colliders back there, and it was a whole mess. But now we have this limit thing, so you don't really see it. But if you ever have had an avatar that you're moving forward or backwards and the boobs like fold back into the body or into the stomach, like completely like do a 360, that's why. So I would suggest adding an angle, and that's what, you know, most of us creators do, so that you don't have that issue. And it tells it to stay within that angle so that that issue won't happen. So that when you are moving forward or backwards with your avatar and you're just like running around, they'll only go up or down a little bit and they won't like disappear. So I definitely recommend angles, and again, just kind of playing around with whatever, you know, angle you feel the most fit. Collision, you'll definitely want to add. So I think for these, I think that's a little too much. So if I do, let's do something like that. So collision, of course, is going to be for your colliders. You're going to want to add collision radius to whatever, you know, number is where you want. But that's, of course, for if we have a collider. Let's say we have a collider up here where my mouse is. Then those Physbones, if you want it to collide with that collider to where it won't move into that collider section, it needs to have a collision radius on it. If it doesn't, so if we just had this back to 0, then even if, you know, you could come in here and you could put in all your different colliders into this spot, the butt's still going to go into that section because there's no radius for it to say like, okay, this is the area. So think of this white outline as like the top of that line. If the collider was up here where the hair is, that white line is going to touch that collider, and then that Physbone is going to stop moving. It won't go past it. So it's kind of like angles, but we can't add angles on everything, right? So like if you've ever had an avatar with like really, really long hair and the hair like doesn't go into the floor, that's what they did. They added a floor collider and put this collision radius on the hair so that whenever the hair touches the floor, it won't go into the floor. So colliders are super helpful, super important, which we'll cover like making them later and assigning them. But you do, whenever you are setting up your Physbones, set up your radius. This is also how your friends or you can interact with your Physbones. So if you don't have colliders there, it's not going to move whenever you touch it. So like if you've ever had someone like touch your avatar's ears or the hair and it moves whenever their hand touches it, that's because there is that collision radius, even if there aren't actual colliders per se assigned to whatever. So like we don't need colliders on the hair strands or around the hair strands or on another person's avatar's hand because of the way vrchat has advanced. They can just touch it and it'll do the same thing. It'll touch this white outline. So if my mouse is my hand in game and I was to come touch where this white outline for this collider or collision is for this Physbone, then it would make that Physbone move with my hand. So another very important thing. I'm sorry, it's like a lot to throw at you guys. When it comes to Unity, it's a lot more like sciencey, techy. So I do apologize if it's a bit overwhelming, but I hope I'm able to explain it in a way that kind of makes sense. So I'm sorry if I'm kind of like stumbling over my words. I'm trying my best to find a way to keep it simple and not so overwhelming while still explaining the importance of things, because I know quite a few of the people that I've met and like talked to in my server and stuff are very science-based thinking, so they need to understand why things work the way they do so that they kind of know how they need to edit it and function it. So that's why you would need to mess with the collision radius, and that's why it's very important to have that on anything that you would want to be interactable on your avatar or that you would want to collide with something else. So there's that. Stretch and squish is something newer that vrchat recently added. I want to say recently, but I think it was actually quite some time ago. But it was not a part, I don't think, of my last tutorial series from a few years ago. I'm going to be completely straight with you guys. I'm still trying to figure it out. There's stretch motion, which I believe this is for like hair. So if you like grab this end Physbone and you pull it, it's that how far is it going to stretch instead of just moving. And then squish, of course, you could do for like the chest or ears, to where the same thing, if you touch it, it's going to make the mesh kind of squish in. I haven't really messed around with it a whole ton. The few times that I've tried to add it, I didn't feel like I was getting my settings very, very well. So I haven't been adding them lately because I haven't really felt like it's made a huge difference. But especially for things like ears, or if you have like a pet sitting on your head or something, then that's something that I would definitely recommend playing around with, because that can make it a lot more fun to be able to like squish down the pet or your ears or something. So yeah, that's kind of all the settings. The last thing before we actually start setting up the Physbones to move is down here, grab and pose. I would suggest turning these off, at least the posing. I normally change to false. So what that is if somebody was to grab this Physbone, like in VR with your hand, you'll put your hand where that Physbone is, and then you make a fist with your controller. You could move it, and then if you hit the trigger on your controller, and I know some controllers are different, but as far as I'm aware of, every VR controller has a trigger. If you hit trigger and release your hand, that Physbone will stay in place. So it's quite literally being able to pose Physbones, which could be really cool for like things like your ears or maybe hair, if you want to kind of like let your friends mess around and kind of like pull pranks on you. But I typically turn it off because I just don't want to have to deal with that. And I don't know how many times that I've been like talking and I'll accidentally pose like my hair strands or my chest or whatever, because I talk with my hands a lot. So totally up to you. And of course, grabbing obviously is if someone can grab it and play with it, which I normally leave on just because I'm one of those people where I'll sit there and I'll like play with somebody's like hair in VR or something. So ADHD moments there, but it's totally up to you if you want to leave those as true or false. Just know that they are there if you ever want to turn them off. And this is something that we will talk about later, but if you're ever wanting to animate a Physbone, it's down here at the very bottom under options. It says is animated, and you can check mark that. We are actually going to animate our wings. I don't know if that'll be this tutorial or next tutorial because it's kind of a mixture of a toggle and Physbone thing. But whenever we go to add our Physbones to our wings, we are going to be check marking that because we're going to be animating them to have an idle movement, which I might put in the series because I'm putting it on this avatar, but I might also like record it as a separate video because I know quite a lot of people have asked for how to make like an idle tail swing or idle ear movement. So it might be something that I'll link in this video or the next video, but it'll be technically a separate video so that people can have an easier time finding it. But that is where the button is if you ever need to animate one of your Physbones. So as far as actually making the Physbones move, just to make things all the more complicated, you can come up here to integration type and go from simplified to advanced, and it adds this pull, momentum, and stiffness sliders. So the best way I can think to explain it is, obviously it's kind of self-explanatory with their names, but it is more numbers for you to mess around with. I'm trying to think how to explain it. I don't really have a preference on which one I do. There have been a few times that, like, just from goofing around with my settings, I have specific settings in advanced that I felt like I liked better than I did in simplified, and vice versa. So I can't really tell you the full difference. I personally don't really know, other than you have a little bit more control with the Physbones in advanced, but as far as which one is better, it really just depends on your preference, because like I said, sometimes I prefer setting it to advanced and sometimes I prefer setting it to simplified. So it really just kind of depends, but I do recommend kind of playing around with it. Same thing with like this rotation under this angle. I have settings saved for chest and butt Physbones that I like a lot, and all I did was like I literally just slid them and I was like, okay, I kind of like the way that moves, and I was just like, what does this do? And I literally like threw on random numbers like that, and I felt like it made just the slightest difference, but I liked it so much more, and I started getting a lot more compliments, and I was like, oh, perfect. So I took a screenshot and I've kept it ever since. Again, can't tell you much about how it works other than it kind of helps this angle be a little bit more like free moving from the origin point. Definitely I would recommend, can't stress it enough, just playing around with the Physbone settings to figure out what you like, because everyone has their own settings that they prefer. A lot of creators do, at least, and yeah, I don't know, like there's just all kinds of different ways that you can make it move, and like I said, you can make it move slower, you can make it more bouncy, springy, but yeah, and a lot of times whenever I've made like videos for my assets, like my puppy ears, I've gotten a lot of people requesting like, oh, what are the Physbone settings you used on that? Quite literally, whenever I go to make my assets, oops, I think it's 0.5, isn't it? I think that's the default. Whenever I've gone to like record my assets in Unity, I literally just take pull down and spring up and just to some random number, and then I go. So I highly recommend just playing around with it, because a lot of the settings that I really like, that I've gotten a lot of compliments on before and had people ask for my settings, were the most random numbers. I just quite literally threw the slider somewhere and went about my day, but it actually worked out. So definitely play around with it. Something I will say for like hair, I would really recommend adding gravity just the tiniest bit, and go into play mode and, you know, rotate your avatar around and play around with the gravity. Now I will say, if you're ever in play mode and you're doing your Physbones, it won't save. So you'll need to hit this 3 dots and you'll do copy component. You can't do it if you have multiple things selected. So just click one thing and hit copy component before you leave play mode, so that way you don't lose all the numbers, and then you can just come back over here and do paste component values and it'll paste whatever you did. So do keep that in mind if you're ever testing Physbones in play mode. But what I recommend for hair is going into play mode and kind of like twisting your avatar around. I have a friend that has this like add-on to his full body stuff to where he can like rotate his avatar like completely upside down. So he'll like hang from trees and stuff, and it's a lot of fun, and we take a lot of goofy pictures, but it's even more fun whenever I add gravity to the hair, because then the hair will fall more naturally, and it will actually like fall down towards the ground instead of staying like in this position that it is whenever he's completely upside down, which is not realistic. So yeah, something I would just kind of recommend adding. Of course, you don't need gravity for everything, but it can help, especially if you feel like things are like too slow moving, but you like the spring or something. Like, I don't know, just kind of a mixture of all three of them sometimes can really make the difference. So yeah, that is the basics of Physbones. I'm sorry, it is so much. There's so much that you can do and play with when it comes to Unity. I know I've said it a million times now. I'm probably just going to keep saying it. There's a lot you can do with Unity to make things very different. And there's a lot to learn. So that is what everything does for Physbones. And that's everything that I find important. I am going to go through now because, again, I'm very, very picky about my stuff. And I'm going to go through and set up my Physbones the way that I like them. I'll just make this into like a little time-lapse, little speed run, and you'll see me probably going in between normal mode and play mode to test my Physbones. So once I get everything added, then we can come back and we'll talk about colliders, and then cloth physics, and I think that's it. Now, editor me is going to hate that I'm doing this now, and you guys might too, and I'm so sorry. I don't know if last time I showed you guys how to look at your materials in the Lightbox viewer to like properly know how they're going to look in game, because like this is a pretty solid representation of like a really well lit world, and this is supposed to be lights off, but like world lighting in VR can be so drastically different. So I just now remembered this because I was thinking like, oh, is there anything else I need to tell them as far as testing Physbones before I go and start the time lapse for it? But I couldn't think of anything, but I did remember that I don't think I showed you guys how to test your materials in Lightbox Viewer. So as I've mentioned before, on your creator companion, if you go to manage projects, you can go to High's GitHub or their Patreon or wherever. I know there's a link on GitHub. I don't remember what the website is, but they have something set up to where you can click the link from their GitHub and it'll take you to whatever page it is, and it'll say, oh, do you want to install this on Creator Companion? You could also download the Unity package if you wanted to and install it that way, but it's Hi Lightbox Viewer. I have it installed already, so once you have that installed, come up here to Window, go to Hi and Lightbox Viewer. It'll pop up this little thing. You can toss this somewhere. If you wanted to like leave it somewhere, you could just leave it out. I'm going to minimize it just a little bit so I can kind of show you guys. I'll put it over here. So object to view, I'm going to grab my avatar and just drag it in, and I'm going to hit activate. I'm so sorry that this is like in the random middle of a Physbones tutorial video, but I realized I hadn't shown you guys, so I wanted to show you. So it's going to mimic the view that you have on your scene. So if it's compiling. I'm sorry. Give it a second. Okay. If you move your view in your scene, you scroll in, you twist around, it's going to do the same thing for Lightbox Viewer, as you can see. But I think this is a great way to like properly test your materials, because this is all the different lighting that's available in that avatar test world. And I would say that this is a pretty solid representation of what most world lighting is going to be. One of these or something very similar to these, or like a mixture. So I think that this is really, really helpful to test your avatars, especially like your emissions. Like you can see a little bit better the blinking and the scrolling that I added on my emissions. Like in this one, I'm like, oh, I think her emissions are a little too bright here, but I really like how they are here. So then I might go through and add like an emission slider or something so people could make it brighter or darker if they wanted to. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw this out there. I'm sorry that this is like super out of order. But that way you guys kind of know the reason why I had suggested this earlier a few videos ago as far as what to add into Unity. I find it very, very helpful to get a much better actual representation of what my avatar is going to look like in game. Especially so that you could be like, oh, I think that she needs a little bit more rim lighting on the hat. or the emissions, or her glitter might be too strong or whatever. So I just wanted to point that out there. I'm really sorry that that's like completely in the wrong spot of the tutorial series, but I'm gonna go ahead and start the time lapse now. I'm gonna go through and add my Physbones, just the settings that I have saved and that I like, so that we don't have to wait for 20 minutes for me to set up everything, or for however long it's going to take. So we're just going to jump into that time lapse real quick, and then when we're done we will move on to the next part. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I have gone through and got all of my Physbone settings added. Like I said before, I just had some different settings like saved that I've always just kind of preferred once I figured out the settings that I liked for this specific base. And then, of course, just hair settings that I've kind of learned over the years. So I've got all of my own personal settings set up. So now I'm going to go into play mode and just kind of show you guys what we're looking at. And I prefer to keep... What? Huh. Okay, we're going to have to look into that. I prefer to keep that off, though, so that I can see a little bit cleaner. And as you can see, like, the hair's, like, super clipping in now. And that is because we don't have any colliders there. So that is part of the reason that we will want colliders. And I do think I had this up a little too high. So go ahead and change that. But yeah, we'll add colliders there so that the hair sits a little bit more normally. But this is what we're looking at. I feel like her chest is a little... I don't know, I prefer like more realistic bones, and the hair is a little too flowy. I do like the wings being stiff. I want them to be stiff because they're not actual wings and they're more like metal-y. And I'm thinking about taking away the tummy chickle because she has abs. But I know tummies can still jickle, but I just don't know if I really want it for her. But we got our booty. Jiggle. I like the wings a lot. I do feel like the hair is a little too slow, because I want those to be stiff. They might be a little too stiff though. So let's go ahead and change. I think we're going to do the wings first. So let's turn these down a little bit. Yeah, I think that helps. Maybe the angle can be a little bit higher. I think that's better. Just a very, very slight difference. So I'm going to copy component, come over back and paste component values. I definitely recommend saving every time before you go into play mode, because sometimes going into play mode for some reason can cause Unity to pull up an error, and it'll be this little box with like the Unity symbol in it, and it'll just have a loading bar underneath it. I recommend closing out of Unity as quickly as you can when that pops up, because there have been quite a few times that will completely crash my Unity and will take away a lot of work that I've done if I haven't saved in a while. Sometimes it'll auto save on the back end, sometimes it won't. So I definitely recommend like hitting file save pretty much every time before you go into play mode, just to be safe, just so that you don't have to run into that issue. So that in case it ever does happen, then you know that you just saved and you are good to go. So well, now it's... Oh, no, it is. Okay, I was looking at the wrong thing. I was about to say it's acting like... So let me find... I just don't know what I like those. The only... I thought I saved an updated hair physics, but I don't guess so. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Now it's going to be annoying having to click it all over again. See how it's like not quite so slow? Oh, I'm going to need to, and this is another reason I like testing Physbones before anything. You see the bangs? They're weight painting kind of funny. So where is it? Hat. If I take that off, I turn up our, I don't know if it's the blend shape or not, but this ponytail is a mix of like multiple hairs, so I don't know if it's, okay, so it's not the root, it's just the bangs. They're on the sides. See, I like the way that the Physbones are now, because it still kind of flows a little bit, but I'm just not a big fan of the ponytail rigging. I don't really like, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's like one big bone. All they did was they just tried to optimize the bones, which I appreciate. So the chains are acting kind of funny too. Oh, hello. Okay, the chains weight painting are scuffed as all heck. And I don't know why they're taking so long. Or why they're like acting inwards like that. That's so weird. Because we don't have any like collisions or anything. So I might just remove the chains. They weren't a part of the original model's like design anyway, and honestly they're not my favorite thing on her. So I might just remove them since they are being really problematic. I'm not sure why they're moving like that slow. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sometimes just with the way that things are weight painted and rigged and stuff, it might, different Physbone settings might affect it differently. So you would just go back through on the chains part of your armature and just give them a different Physbone settings. But I don't know what is going on. But since this hair and these chains were, weight painted to like different hair bones, since I did a hair merge, that's probably what messed it up. But I never really liked them anyway. I did like when I saw the hair. That was like big reason why I bought it. But for this model, I just didn't really feel like it fit her a whole ton. So I might keep like this one part and maybe try to fix these and re-rig and weight paint these front ones. But I think these ones in the back I'll probably just delete. So I'm probably going to get rid of those since I wasn't huge for this model anyway. And then whenever we get back into Blender, we're going to need to see what's going on with these bangs. They're acting really like crunchy, which is super weird, and their weight painting is giving us issues. So that's the ponytail hair. If we check the down hair, nothing seems funky there. So now let's test. See, for the down hair, I feel like it needs a little bit more flow, so I might actually change. And I could always just go through and like check. Oh, I'm not going to keep the chain, so I guess it doesn't matter. But in Blender, you can always go through and check which bones are which for what hair if you need to. So now I feel like that's worse. Still just a hair too slow for my personal taste. So let's go back up just a hair. I think that's better. And then if we go to down hair, ponytail hair. I think that's better. Still not quite perfect how I would want it, but I do think that's better. So I'm just going to copy one of them and I'm going to do the same thing. Highlight those and paste component values. So now all of those are fixed and we're just going to get rid of the chains. So I'm not too worried about that. We have the chains on the hat anyway. And I will fix the bangs whenever it comes time for us to look at updating things in Blender. But what I find really interesting is it's not, they don't look, maybe I'm just going crazy. They don't look quite as weird. Which is super interesting since we don't have any colliders, but I don't know. We will figure it out. So I'm just going to set aside real quick and grab a post-it note so I can jot down what we need to fix. So the ponytail bangs. Okay. I just wanted to step aside real quick and jot those down so that I knew I can keep a list going of what we need to fix in Blender whenever that time comes. So now that we have our Physbones, we've updated the wings and the hair, we are good to move on to colliders. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Okay, so when it comes to adding colliders, there's a few different ways you can do it. This is just how I prefer. I mean, the technical process of adding a collider is the same, but as far as like how you add them, I don't know. This is just how I add colliders. So what I normally do is I'll right click here in like this open space and I'll do create empty, and let's name this like head collider. I normally abbreviate it because I'm lazy. And I'll add a component. I'll make sure my little doodad's turned on. Add component, Physbone collider. Now, for some reason, a lot of times it will not be at the center. So come up here and just zero that out. And the reason I like to add an empty is so that I can freely move it without like having to worry about messing up any of my armature or anything. Some people will add it directly onto the bones, and that's perfectly fine. And then they'll just adjust it from there. I prefer to have it as an empty so I can move it and adjust it, and that way sometimes, because I feel like just adjusting it sometimes isn't fixing the problem. Sometimes it needs to be moved, and vice versa. So I personally prefer adding it as an empty that way. It's not going to like up the poly count or anything of your avatar. It's literally like an empty spot, and you're just telling it to only have a collider there. And then I'll go through and like drag it onto whatever spot I need it to be and assign it to a bone that way. So totally up to you what you want to do, but that's just how I prefer it. I also prefer capsules instead of spheres. I feel like they're a little easier to work with, and we'll just take down the radius and the height to a size and shape that I feel like fits best. And sometimes, like with the head, you actually want it to be a little bit smaller. Sometimes you don't. It just depends on where the hair bones are. Like sometimes if the hair bones are kind of like really truly parenting to the head bone, they'll be parenting down here, which is hitting that collider, which can make your hair do funny things. And then sometimes there won't be a bone in between them. They're still parented to the head, but the hair bone will start like up here, which won't be touching the collider, which is ideal. So another reason why I like to have it as an empty, so I can just adjust it. I think that width is pretty good. It should kind of catch her bangs and her forehead so that nothing should be clipping into her head. And of course we'll test that here in a few minutes. And then I'm just going to Control D to duplicate. And we're going to call this a chest collider. I duplicate it so I don't have to worry about setting it up again. And then I can just move it down and adjust from there. And this is mostly for the ponytail back right now, so we're just going to kind of scoot that back because see it's resting out right now, but since we added that gravity, sorry for hitting my mic, since we added that gravity, it's pulling it down, which is, since it's kind of a curved hair, that's why I was clipping it to the back. So I'm just going to kind of adjust this. I do want it to be a little bit smaller because of something else we're going to do here in just a second. But that is pretty much reaching her back, so that's what we want. And then I'm going to add a neck collider. And the reason why I personally add like multiple colliders, if you do like just an absolute insane amount of colliders, it can of course affect your avatar stats, but I feel like it is one of the less heavy things, I guess. Like there's a lot worse things that you could do to add to your avatar to make it super heavy. I prefer to add multiple and have them overlap because I've noticed before, and sometimes it still happens on my models, it's just one of those things that you would really have to keep adjusting, or sometimes you just absolutely can't control it. But if there's gaps like that neck, then the hair, whenever, let's say we're moving backwards really fast, the hair bones will come forward and they'll stop down here and they'll stop up here, but there's bones here in the middle. So those bones will sneak through the neck and then it'll get caught up here, and now your hair is like sticking out of your neck funny. So I prefer to add a few and have them overlap to just kind of help avoid you know, weird like clipping things like that. So this one, shoulder collider, and we are going to rotate it at a negative 90 degrees. And then we're going to make it a little bit wider so that it'll reach the shoulders, and put it back a little bit. So now if we highlight them all, you can see the hair might come over the shoulders, but then whenever it's trying to go back to its resting position, it'll fall like over the shoulder mesh. And then it'll, you know, it can't really get stuck anywhere else, and it'll go back. And that's something else I really like about colliders, is it just adds a little bit more realism to your avatars without taking away the like fantasy element of this being a cyber demon chick. The last thing that I like to do so like we have our ponytail hair, that's pretty covered right now, but our down hair has this hair coming out here on the front. You should be off. Where the chest is. So I like to add Physbone colliders there so that it won't clip into the chest. It's just another like little, I don't know, quality of life thing that I like to do. Oops. So if we take this one and we move it down, and this is still at 0 on the X, so it's still in the center of our avatar, but now we can bring it forward a little bit, and we're going to bring it over. That is the right side. I got directionally confused. And down, and then I'm going to rotate it so that it's kind of more angled. Height up a hair. Something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just, again, know that where that outline of the green is for that collider, it's just like what we were talking about with the butt Physbones down there, is that's where it's going to hit. So I don't want it to be too high. And the hair's sticking out super duper funny. I kind of want it to outline her chest as much as I can. So I think that's pretty good. Maybe scoot it over a little bit so that it doesn't clip in too much to there. And then we'll duplicate that one. We'll name it the right one, and we'll just drag it over. And we don't have to do the rotations or things like that anymore. So now should be good. Since those two are, I'm just gonna kind of adjust them just a hair to where they are overlapping there at that center. Just barely, and that will help things not clip through. So now I'll extend out my armature again. I'm so sorry I keep hitting my mic. I don't mean to. And we'll go to chest. Let's add those 3. And the reason why I don't put the like boob colliders, I guess, on the boob Physbones is it's just personal preference. Other creators might do it differently. I feel like whenever I've had them there, it starts to mess with the boob Physbones themselves, even if I don't put the colliders on there. Like, even if I don't tell those Physbones to register those colliders, I still feel like it messes with things. I feel like it does the hair kind of funny different times, so I just leave them where the boobs tend to rest. It's not very often that those are going to be moving around like crazy or anything, so if you're just kind of like vibing, like talking to your friends or playing a game, you're typically standing pretty still, so they're just very slightly going to move. So I feel like that still lets those move as they would, but still lets the hair not really clip into anything. But you could totally add them to the boob root if you want to, and go from there. It's just, like I said, it's just kind of something that I personally don't do, but there's no reason that you can't. And shoulder collider, I need to be on the spine, which I have lost. So the spine of mine is, oh, I had that backwards. No. Okay. I had that completely turned around in my head. Hold on. Shoulder collider will also go on the chest. I forgot. I had that backwards. So the spine collider is down here, kind of more towards her tummy, and the chest collider is up here, more towards the center of her chest. And then the neck Physbones, the neck bone. My goodness, can't talk. It starts up here. So I actually want the shoulder collider to be on the chest bone, so that whenever you bend forward, that collider goes with you. And then the head collider, we want on the actual head bone. So now everything is assigned to where it needs to be. Now the super fun part, we go into play mode and test. Now, just gonna throw it out there, a lot of times when you go into play mode to test your colliders, things are gonna look funny, and that's perfectly normal. So I might have to go back and forth a few times to fix the colliders to be exactly where I want them to be. So, oh, or we have to go back and forth because you have a brain fart like me and you completely forget to actually assign them. So I'm just gonna turn that off because that's annoying. And we're gonna take off the chain, so I'm not too worried about that. So go back to your Physbones, highlight what you need, and here under that collision section is, I pointed it out earlier where it says colliders and size. So this is where, of course, we will start adding them. So we have head, neck, shoulder, and 3 chest bones. So we have 6 in total. And then you can click this little dot so you don't have to like scroll through and find everything. And you can just start applying what you need. An order does not matter. So I'm just going down the list, adding everything. So now my hair has everything assigned to it. The wings don't really have enough Physbones to like move through the chest, like they are angle. Same thing with the tail. So I think we are good. And that's really the only spot that we needed to add those colliders. The rest of the colliders that we added on like the wings and the tail and stuff is more for interactive purposes. Go ahead and save again. And now that it's registering, we can go back through and check. So now you can see that it's actually starting to kick in. Now, I will say the reason why I had to leave play mode is if you try to add your colliders to your Physbones in play mode, it's not going to register them. Because obviously they weren't added beforehand. So it doesn't quite work like it does with like editing Physbone like radials and stuff to make them move. Like you can test that in play mode. It doesn't work the same way with colliders. You can't add the colliders to the Physbone to test it. You have to add them first before you go into play mode, and then go into play mode and it'll actually register. I'm not really sure why it does that, but it does. So head collider. I feel like, and that might just be from the blend shape. I'm not too sure. Yeah, okay, I think that's just from the blend shape. But just so you guys can kind of see. So now, if I wanted it to come out like a little bit further, I could just move these. And that's why I was saying like you don't want it to be too high. See, it's kind of making those bangs like stick out funny over there. I normally pull it out just enough to where it's kind of touching those bangs so that they stay off. But I think we're actually good with where it was. And I'm just going to kind of notate. And it's the same thing. If you need to, you can click the 3 dots, copy component, go back and paste. I'm just going to kind of notate where that one is because that one doesn't really need a lot. Okay, so there's that. And then our other ones, our chest collider seems to be doing exactly what we need it to. It's keeping the hair off of the boobs there, and the back collider is keeping that hair poking out there. So let's test our ponytail hair real quick. I might move out that back chest bone a little bit. Okay. And then we can go and click her. Get rid of that. See, the ponytail's like doing some really weird stuff. I don't know. See what I mean about like it tries to come through, but then it just falls back over the shoulder. And we'll fix those bangs. I am curious why it's like bending. Don't know if that's from... Maybe if it's from the gravity, because it's not the head collider. The head collider's too... Maybe I just need to add another one, because this ponytail's definitely kind of acting up. Not too sure what's going on with it. It is an older hair though, from what I remember. I think it's been out for quite a while. And then we moved the chest collider back and up. And that was it. That was all we needed to fix. I am going to go into play mode one more time and test the boob collider because I wasn't really looking at that too clearly. Oh goodness. Okay. Perfect. That's what I wanted. I just wanted it to kind of like, I don't know, stay on top of the chest. So all good. So the last thing for this tutorial is we're going to talk about cloth physics. Aha! The Unity error that I talked about. We're gonna close. Okay, so we're back. So I tried to so much just happened. I tried to add cloth physics to the bottom of the pants to demonstrate how cloth physics can be useful for things like skirts and dresses, especially ones that aren't rigged. Tried to set it up. Apparently, I have completely forgotten how to set up cloth physics, even though I thought I remembered how. Like, the buttons were familiar and I was going, and I went to go test it and the pants just fell straight through the floor. So I was like, oh, well, like, give me a second. Let me try to refresh myself on this. And then my Unity did the exact error that I told you guys that it was going to. I think, hopefully I remember to make all of that into like a time lapse so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. But the error did pop up. My Unity did indeed crash. So I closed it all out and restarted it, and we're back. Thankfully, nothing seems to have been lost as far as like our colliders or anything. Like, they're all still there. And they seem to be have been moved to where I last moved them. So we didn't lose anything, thankfully. So I am taking back everything that I said. I will not be teaching cloth physics today. My computer is like 7 years old, and 3 years ago when I first started avatar creation, my computer could absolutely handle cloth physics, but it does not seem like it can handle it anymore. So I won't be able to show you guys that. I deeply apologize, but I will make sure that when I go through and I'm editing this, that I will add a video link in the description to another tutorial that will teach you guys cloth physics in case that's something that you do want to learn. So I deeply apologize for that. I'm really, really sorry. I forgot to add the straps to the pants, so I'm just going to do that real quick. But I think that's pretty much it for this video. I'm so sorry about the cloth physics thing, but like I said, they're not widely used on avatars anymore because it can be kind of laggy, especially in like really big popular public worlds, and especially if people have like really big avatars out. So it's not super duper important. It's just something that I knew existed and I just kind of wanted to share with you guys. So I apologize for that, but I will make sure to link a video down below for that. So I'm going to go through and add the Physbones to the straps real quick and wrap up this specific tutorial. All right, so I have gone through and I have added some Physbones to the straps and the chains, which I, showed that just a second ago. But sorry, there was no commentary. I was just copying and pasting the Physbones from the tail. So I, again, am very sorry about the cloth physics that I didn't get to show that. But today's tutorial, just as a quick recap, was adding Physbones and Colliders and talking about all the different things that go into Physbones and gravity and your collision and why that's important. So we talked about a lot, but really only did 2 things. So it was kind of a very small tutorial, but also there was a lot that we covered. So next tutorial, we will go ahead and start jumping into our toggles. So like I've said before, and I just want to keep stressing it, there are going to be 2 different ways that we're going to be learning tutorials. One of them is going to be the classic way, the manual way, setting everything up and how to do like on and off and either or. But we're also going to have a second half of that video where we're going to be using the AV3 Creator toggle tool, which auto creates your toggles. And the reason why I want to keep stressing this is I just think it's very, very important that the AV3 Creator toggle tool is paid for. It is $10 for basic use, $20 for supporter, and the supporter comes with like beta features, like it will auto do hue shifts and things like that for you. I only have the basic one, so I won't be able to do any of the like more advanced things that the supporter one maybe can. But I would like to show you guys the basic one, just because I know of a few new people that have recently gotten into creating that are trying to use that tool and have asked for some guidance on that. So I would like to include that for anyone that does want to use the tool. But I do just want to keep reiterating that I think it's very important, and I would really recommend that you guys do watch the first half of the next video so that you know how to manually set up your toggles if you can't afford to buy the AV3 toggle creator right now, or if you just don't want to, or if you do want to start off that way, that's perfectly fine. But I would still recommend go ahead and watching the first half of the next video, because in case that toggle creator ever gets outdated or it breaks or it has bugs or whatever, then you still know how to make your toggles. You still can go through and do it so that you can continue on with your avatar and you're not being held back because of a tool and an add-on breaking. But of course, it's very helpful to make things a bit faster and a little bit less stressful for you. In the next video, I will also link in the next tutorial description of course, I'll link AV3 Creators tool, but I will also link their Discord. If you do decide to start using the AV3 Creator tool, whether you're familiar with how to manually make toggles or not, if you run into any issues with that, I am more than happy to try my best to help. But more than anything, I would really recommend joining their Discord server. And this is something that I will reiterate on the next video. But I would recommend joining their server even beforehand if you want to just kind of get a look and feel for if that's something that you might want to invest in before starting the next tutorial so that you have it or not. But of course, it's their tool, so I think that they would be the best source to go to for any questions or if you run into any bugs or any issues with it. Like I said, I'm more than happy to try my best to help because it's something I have used for a while, but I am not overly fluent with the tool. There's a lot of really cool advanced things that the tool can do that I haven't quite yet figured out how to do myself. So I just wanted to throw that out there that whether you're looking at getting it before the next video or after or whatever, I'm happy to help. But I would recommend checking out the tool's Gumroad page to kind of look into what all it comes with and how it works, as well as joining the creators of the tool server, as they'll be able to be quite a bit more helpful with the tool and answer any questions than I would be able to. So next video is most likely going to be a little long. I do deeply apologize for that in advance. But since we're going to be learning 2 different types or 2 different types of tutorials, as well as 2 different ways to create the tutorials, the toggles. I can't speak today. 2 different types of toggles: on, off, generic, and either or. And then 2 types of ways to make the toggles. I kept saying tutorials. I'm so sorry. It's just going to be a long video. I know I'm kind of rambling right now. I'm just a little bit nervous about the next video, so I deeply apologize for my rambling right now. I just know that it's most likely going to be a long video. And it's probably the most important part of avatar creation. So I apologize for any frustrations with it being longer. And if it feels like it's not getting, if it's not short enough, I know plenty of other videos make it very quick on, oh, this is how you do a toggle in like 5 minutes. But I would prefer to show you guys, like I said, the whole point of redoing the series was to show you guys as much as I can, and as many tips and tricks and things, so that this is kind of an all-in-one encompassing tutorial series for you guys, so that if you have any other questions or issues, then hopefully everything has mostly been answered in this video. So that's my forewarning for the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. As always, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please let me know down in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer you as quickly as possible. Reaching out to my Discord server is probably the fastest way to get a hold of me if you have a really urgent question. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good day.